theaters may still be closed, so we're not getting as many big blockbuster action films as we would have liked this summer, but thankfully we've got a new film on Netflix courtesy of the filmmakers behind Catfish, Nerve, and Paranormal Activity. In the new Netflix film Project Power, we're following 3 specific characters who all have their own unique motivations as it relates to a new drug that's taking over the streets of New Orleans known as Power, which, as the name suggests, actually gives people superhuman abilities for up to 5 minutes at a time. Dominique Fishback plays Robin, a young high school student who is selling this drug in hopes of earning enough money to help her and her sick mother move into a better living situation. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays Frank, a police detective who is trying to take down the big suppliers of power, even though he does occasionally use the drug himself to combat any superpowered criminals that he encounters during his duties. And then there's Jamie Foxx as Art, a mysterious individual who also wants to find the larger suppliers of power, and hopefully it will lead him to his daughter who was kidnapped, who just so happens to be the source of this superhuman drug. Now, right off the bat, Project Power reminded me a lot of certain comic books that I've read, especially Gen 13, but also a few films that, while not based on comics, still had superpowered individuals fighting against government organizations, and most specifically, I'm talking about the 2009 film Push with Chris Evans and Dakota Fanning and Djimon Hounsou, which I thought was always something that a lot of people overlooked, and wrongfully so, and I hope that anyone who watches Project Power and enjoys it decides to look that film up as well, because it's definitely worth checking out. This is obviously not trying to be a big budget blockbuster film with a $100 million plus budget, but it does have a few flashy set pieces, some solid action, some good visual effects, but they're definitely trying to have a more intimate and smaller story, which I thought was a good approach for Project Power to have. I think sometimes movies like this, you can kind of have your eyes be bigger than your stomach, and it's kind of good that they kind of went with more of a low-level approach with this, and there's still a lot to enjoy. There's still a lot of great tension in the film, but they're definitely trying to make this more smaller, more compact, and a little bit leaner than most big-budget action films that would probably revolve around the similar subject matter. And obviously there are some parallels going on here to things that have happened in real life, most specifically the crack epidemic, as power is a drug that is being funneled into these lower working class neighborhoods within New Orleans that are predominantly black, and you kind of get the little bit of allegory that the filmmakers are going for. And sometimes it doesn't always work, but for the most part, I feel like it does help to add a good, stronger element to the overall film, and it definitely helps to strengthen the character of Robin as you see her situation and how she's trying to struggle and fight against it. So I definitely appreciated that to a certain extent, even though there are times where it can be a little bit overbearing. And as for Robin as a character, I think Dominique Fishback does a great job of bringing her to life. She's resourceful, she's outspoken, she has this great determination about herself, but she also has moments of vulnerability, especially when she crosses paths with Jamie Foxx's Art, but you still kind of get that sense that this is a character who sees the world around her, knows how shitty it can be, and is doing what she can to just get by. And I think, again, this is kind of crazy to look at Dominique Fishback, who is almost 30 years old and still manages to convincingly play a teenager. So you need to just rock that as much as you can whenever you can, girl, because you pull it off immensely well. Jamie Foxx, obviously a reliable actor as far as these roles are concerned, and he doesn't really get to do much that really stretches him beyond what he's done in films like, say, Miami Vice or The Kingdom, but you still have him as a reliable sort of just anchor for the rest of the film, because Dominique Fishback is doing a lot of heavy lifting, but Jamie Foxx included in the cast is definitely a strong addition, and it brings a level of tenacity to this film that is really important, especially with the backstory of his character and everything he's been through. And sometimes he can come off needlessly abrasive, but it's still something that definitely works, and you almost get the sense that the filmmakers are deliberately making him a little bit unlikable when you're first introduced to him, because he is kind of coming into these situations very aggressively, and you don't know everything about him yet. So as you learn more about his character, you definitely start to sympathize with him and engage with him on a more emotional level, and it really works throughout the entire film. So I don't know if I could see anyone else in this role, and I think Jamie Foxx did a pretty stellar job. I think there were just a few elements that could have been tightened as far as his character development, but nothing that's, you know, sinking the entire performance as far as I'm concerned. And then we have Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is still good in the film, but he's probably the weaker of the three principal leads. I think that they don't really do much to flesh out his character, and it feels like the relationship between him and Robin isn't as well developed as it could have been. But there are some nice bits of humor in his performance that bring some levity to the overall film, because things do kind of get a little dour through most of it, so it's nice when there's that little comedic punch from him that he handles exceptionally well, especially one scene involving him and Robin's mother, which I won't go into too much detail about, but it was definitely a bright spot in the film overall, as well as one of the stronger moments for his performance specifically. But what about the action? Yes, this is an action movie. There is action in it. There's some great visual effects, actually. There are things that are very impressive, especially one scene involving rapper Machine Gun Kelly, or as he likes to be known when he's acting, Colson Baker, and he just has this great fight scene with Jamie Foxx where he's using his specific power, which is to create fire, and how they realize this through the visual effects is just insane, because it's a combination of prosthetics as well as CGI that I thought really looked well blended with everything that was shot, and just the intensity of the action and how it's shot and how everything is choreographed looked exceptional, and I thought it was absolutely impressive. But you also have instances where sometimes exhibiting someone's specific power is just a matter of hiring a professional contortionist to sort of bend their limbs around and enhance that with CGI when necessary. And other times you're just having someone who's really strong and you don't have to do much in terms of visual effects to bring that to life. But I also love that even if it's just on a movie pseudoscience level, they're actually trying to explain how everyone has these specific powers, and each person is going to have one specific power that they're always going to be able to exhibit when they take one of the power pills, and there's a little bit more practicality to it, so it grounds things and it makes it feel like this could potentially happen. And of course, again, you're layering in that parallel of the social commentary to kind of make this feel like something that's not so fantastical, and it just all helps to make for a more engaging film. It's a shame though, because there is one aspect of Project Power where I feel like if they had put a little bit more emphasis on it, it could have taken a film that I thought is pretty good to being great. And that is the fact that it doesn't have really strong villains in this film. We've got Rodrigo Santoro in there as a broker who's trying to get a deal together to sell his supply of power pills to some nefarious characters in other countries, and they really don't do much with him. He doesn't feel like he's a threat or that he's someone we should be scared of, even when we get to a point where he exhibits his power, and it almost comes off a little hokey and silly, and that was one of the points that kind of took the film down a bit for me. And then you have Amy Landecker in there as a character named Garner. She is some shadowy government agent that we don't get to know anything about until the very end of the film, where she's finally officially introduced, even though she's mentioned in passing throughout the film. And she's just kind of your standard paint-by-numbers, government operative who has all of these grand monologues about why she's doing what she's doing, as she's the one who is holding Art's daughter captive and bringing up Henrietta Lacks and talking about what this will do for, fighting terrorism and making the world better and blah, blah, blah. It all feels so tired, so familiar, and it does nothing to really sort of bring any more tension to the final act of the film, which is a shame because we're dealing with a really engaging set piece that takes place on a sea freighter, and she is just not really doing anything for me as far as being a villain character. Whatever history she may have with Art isn't really clearly defined, if it's even expressed, and you just kind of have this whole situation where you're not really engaging with her or anything that she's saying, and that's a shame because I feel like, again, this is the type of movie where you need a really compelling villain to kind of pull everything together, and that's one thing that this film lacks. And it's unfortunate because there's so much potential for this, especially if you wanted to make it into a franchise. That would be something that would be interesting to see, but as far as this first film is concerned, we're not really getting a sense of who this character is, and even as an avatar for the whole idea of the system kind of taking this drug and putting it into these disenfranchised neighborhoods and trying to see what happens when the individuals take it. Again, this is one of the times when that allegory and that sort of parallel that they're trying to strike is not as strong as it could have been. But at the end of the day, I still thought that this was a fun, enjoyable film for the performances from Dominique Fishback, Jamie Foxx, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. There are some strong action scenes in there, some fun visual effects, and overall, this is not a bad way to spend 2 hours in the comfort of your own home because you have no choice. Hey guys, thanks for watching as always. If you've got your own thoughts or opinions on Project Power that you would like to share, go ahead and leave a comment in the section below. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the notification bell, share this video with your friends and family, and if you'd like to keep up to date on more At Random videos, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button right over here.